joining me. I'm just going to spend a few short moments quickly looking at the reactions to the Treaty of Versailles. In previous videos, I've talked about the big three and who they were and what they were trying to achieve at the end of World War I. I've looked at the terms of the Treaty of Versailles, and I will give you links to both of those which should have popped up. And now I just want to think about those reactions. How do people feel about the Treaty of Versailles? And that's something that you, when you come down to writing your exam answers, need to consider that if you get a question about the Treaty of Versailles. So I'm going to split it down into the four key countries. We're going to look at Britain's reaction, the French reaction, the American reaction, and Germany's reaction. Now, first of all, Britain. David Lloyd George returns back from the treaty, returns back from Paris, and he's treated as a hero. He's punished Germany. He's done what he said he would do. He would squeeze Germany until the pips squeaked. That was a phrase that some people used. However, some people felt he could have gone harder. Don't forget, a lot of families had lost loved ones during World War I, and therefore they really felt that Germany should almost be crushed. David Lloyd George, he felt that the German economy was now very much weakened, and he was worried that Germany wouldn't be able to trade properly. However, David Lloyd George was pleased that he'd managed to make sure that Britain stayed a global power. The British Empire remained intact. Any chance of a German Empire had been stopped. The British Navy would still effectively rule the seas, and there was no chance of a German Navy, with them only having 6 battleships, and no chance of an effective German Navy. So that deals with Britain, and now they've walked away from the Treaty of Versailles. Next, I really want to look at France and Georges Clemenceau. Clemenceau feels that the treaty has not been harsh enough. The French people wanted to wipe out Germany pretty much. They wanted to crush them. And they're now feeling that Germany still has an army. Okay, it's only 100,000 men, but it's still an army. And Clemenceau pretty much wanted to wipe out the German army. Clemenceau wanted to leave the German economy so ruined it would be impossible for Germany to recover. However, he feels they will be in a position to recover, even with the war reparations payments. And Clemenceau was frustrated that the Rhineland still remained part of Germany. He wanted it to be a completely neutral state, and the Rhineland has only been demilitarised. So that means Germany can't place its army in the Rhineland, but Clemenceau wanted more. So Clemenceau walks away from the Treaty of Versailles quite frustrated. I'll now look at America, and we'll look at Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson, it's described as him leaving the conference as upset. Woodrow Wilson came to the Paris Peace Conference with his 14 points. The 14th of those is the formation of the League of Nations. However, many of his other points were ignored. He feels that the Treaty of Versailles and the terms of the Treaty of Versailles have been so harsh on Germany, it is effectively guaranteed a war will happen later on in the future. The American people don't really care. They are adopting this position of, well, Europe's a long way off from us, it's across the Atlantic Ocean, it is nothing to do with us, we want to step away. And that's very similar to the American government as well. And we see this policy of isolationism starting to take effect. So the American government refused to ratify the treaty. They refused to accept it. They say, you didn't accept Wilson's 14 points. It has nothing to do with us. This is a European issue. We are not getting involved. And you'll see later that's got ramifications for the League of Nations. And then finally, we need to think about how Germany's position is. And Germany feels very bitter, very angry, very unfairly treated. When the first people were sent by the government to sign the treaty, they looked at it and refused. They walked away. And German government was given 24 hours. They were told, you have to come back, you have to sign this, otherwise we go to war again. And that's where we have that phrase diktat, where it's a forced peace treaty. Germany feels that they have been singled out, that it is unfair, and that they're not going to recover from this, and they're very, very bitter. The reality is many German people are going to want revenge, are going to feel that there is almost a score to settle, and that's something you're going to need to bear in mind. So you need to make those links from how Germany feels to what happens later on. How does Hitler use this feeling to his advantage? And how do feelings change over time? And that's something I just quickly want to look at before I end this. A really good developed answer at GCSE will show developed thinking, will show changes over time. So at the start, the view in Britain about the Treaty of Versailles is, well done, Germany's been punished, and rightly so. They caused all this death and destruction in World War I. But by the time you get to the 1920s, and in particular the early 1930s, you'll see a view change where many people in Britain say, well, hold on, Germany's not allowed an army, but we're allowed an army. Germany's only doing what everybody else does. So you need to identify how those views change over time as well, particularly when you start looking at Germany's rearmament and how Hitler then clearly breaks the Treaty of Versailles and the reaction to that in Europe and in Britain. So there we are. It is a very quick run through how the nations, how the leaders reacted to the Treaty of Versailles. I've put up in front of you a little chart, nice and simple one. You've got a face on one side that looks angry, a face on one side that looks happy. What really you now should be thinking about is, where would you place each of those nations on that chart? Who's done well? Who's not done well? My thinking is that the vast majority of them are at the unhappy end of that spectrum to varying degrees. Nobody walks away from the Treaty of Versailles completely happy. I get that there's compromise involved, but the fact that everybody is so unhappy almost sets us up for World War II. So there you have it. Reactions to the terms of the Treaty of Versailles. Thanks very much for watching. Don't forget, click subscribe. I'm going to add more and more videos covering GCSE, covering A-level, and I'm also going to cover exam techniques as well, how to get these exams answered and get the marks that you guys are hoping to aim for. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.